The top story this hour: Ethiopian government firm not to render flight and telecom services in state of Tigray because of security issues. East African Policy Research Institute appreciates the unilateral ceasefire declared in Tigray. And Ethiopia finalizes its preparation to plant a million seedling in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Hello, this is Addis News. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has sent a congratulatory message to China on the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party. On behalf of Prosperity Party and himself, he expressed the warmest congratulations in a statement today. The vision espoused 100 years ago by China's sons and daughters to establish a prosperous China has been on the right track through the strong and heartily committed leadership of the CPC, he said. The CPC-led Chinese government, which has been meaningfully contributing to Ethiopia's efforts to address poverty-related challenges in various parts of the country, the Premier noted. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia declined to accept the call for opening up flights, telecom and other services in Tigray because of security concerns. Minister Demeke Mekonnen made the remark today while briefing diplomats about government's declaration of unilateral ceasefire in the state of Tigray. Habtam Ashadu reports.
Briefing current issues to Addis Ababa-based diplomats, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister Demeke Mekonnen said the government of Ethiopia decided unilateral ceasefire agreement in the state of Tigray, taking proper measures to bring peace and stability.
We believe the unilateral humanitarian ceasefire will avert a potential catastrophe in food security, thus allowing people to focus on their farming duties, at least during this rainy season. In addition to the situation in Tigray, we continue to face clear and present danger emanating from threats posed against our national security by external actors, which certainly requires our most serious and urgent attention.
Briefing journalists, State Minister for Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Redwan Hussein, for his part, said the government of Ethiopia is now taking responsibility to deliver flight, telecommunication and other services in the state of Tigray.
If the UN needs to deliver humanitarian service in the state of Tigray by using aircrafts, we do not provide green light and take responsibility to do this. Thus, all airways are closed into Tigray and the federal government is not currently managing business in this region. But we are always ready to give our support when the UN aircrafts lands in Addis Ababa. To make things clear, we are delighted to provide necessary support to all except in the state of Tigray.
Redwan calls upon the international community to formalize all activities to bring solution and to solidify the unity and solidarity of Ethiopians. Talking to ETV, diplomats for their part said they are ready to extend their support that the unilateral ceasefire agreement is to bring peace in the region.
We support as Djibouti, but the whole country supports that ceasefire and the international community as well. So I think it will be very important. This is a very important step. For all Ethiopian stakeholders. And I think, it's always better to talk. It's always better to have ceasefire. We know as Djibouti the history of these big countries. And we hope, of course, to see better coming very soon. This is our position in Djibouti.
Japan supports this unilateral ceasefire, and the Deputy Prime Minister and the Redwan State Minister have updated the information regarding the Tigray, and also what they are committed about the humanitarian ceasefire as well as the national dialogue. That was quite encouraging. But at the same time, we are still concerned about some of the Japanese people who are stuck in Mekelle and safely return. That's what we'd like to deliver as well.
The government of Ethiopia also calls upon the diplomatic community to play their share to alleviate humanitarian crisis in the state of Tigray.
Ethiopian state of emergency fact-check said the terrorist group TPLF has destroyed the Tekeze bridge to intentionally limit assistance route in the region. The government of Ethiopia declared humanitarian ceasefire to help farmers in the region engage in farming activities during this planting season. However, rejecting the humanitarian ceasefire enacted in support of farmers to seize the planting season, the terrorist group TPLF have destroyed the Tekeze bridge intentionally to limit assistance route into the region, the fact-check indicated. The government has made it clear that a federal defense force with mechanized army units and state-of-the-art military technology could not possibly stoop to such cowardly measures. The government said it can, if need be, completely wipe out the so-called TDF, which has lost nearly all battles and controlled Mekelle only after the ENDF withdrew. The government spent 7 solid months repairing bridges and other infrastructure previously destroyed by the TPLF special forces. The maintenance of the Aksum airport, as well as reconstruction of several other telecom and other infrastructure destroyed by the TPLF, are clear examples to show this. In fact, a party that unilaterally declared ceasefire cannot possibly cut bridges to thwart the advance of a defeated terrorist army, it said. Director of East African Policy Research Institute, Brahanu Lengiso, said the unilateral ceasefire the government has recently declared in Tigray region is appropriate. In an exclusive interview with the TV English, the scholar also condemned strongly the recent call of TPLF terrorist group to escalate violence in the Horn of Africa. Kasanjani reports.
The East African Policy Research Institute Director Brahanu Lengiso told TV English that the request of the interim administration of Tigray State to the federal government to make a unilateral ceasefire decision is enthusiastic and will play a pivotal role to restore peace and security in the region, while on the contrary he also blamed the propaganda of the TPLF terrorist group, who has rejected the Ethiopian government's unilateral ceasefire and vote to continue the war.
TPLF has been doing this for the last half a century. They actually marched about 200,000 famine victims to Sudan in 1984 to get attention from the international community and to receive food aid directly. The aid that they have used to purchase weaponries. But what happened to the 200 famine victims that marched to Sudan is the question without answer to that. So they are very skilled in that business. They are very experienced in that business. And they are trying to repeat that same thing again. If, for example, they cut roads, bridges, the international food workers, because they don't know the area, they don't know how to reach the civilians, then at that point TPLF will bring itself in as an assistant to the aid workers, and they will use all the money to purchase weapons again. So it is up to us, and mainly up to the people in Tigray to make this clear to the international community so that they will get what they need.
Brown vividly indicates the TPLF has no desire for peace in Tigray and the country at large, even when they were in power for the last 27 years, and in various attempts to spark a regional war in the Horn of Africa on their day-to-day activities.
I mean, I don't believe TPLF has worked for peace in the region in the first place, but at least at this time when people in Tigray, people they claim they have been struggling for, has been in this very dire situation. They should have been the one who agreed to this ceasefire call from the international community, from the interim Tigray administration, and finally the decision of the federal government. But as you mentioned, the remnants of TPLF rather disagree to ceasefire. But there is also another version of this story, that the international community has been pressuring the federal government to ceasefire, thinking that it is the federal government who is pushing this conflict. But now, as you said, the spokesperson of the terrorist organization came out and said we are not.
He further commented that the responsible body for administering the region is yet the interim administration, because Tigray is part of the nation at the HPR and the federal government is still under operation.
Ceasefire is not about changing administration. It's not about losing the region. It's not about losing the city. Some people think ceasefire means giving Tigray to some force, I don't know which. No, that is not true. Tigray is part of Ethiopia. The federal government is, in effect, controlling the Tigray region as well. And the interim administration that is given recognition by the federal government and House of Federation is still in operation for me. What has changed is the federal government or the National Defense Force is not effectively in conflict with TPLF.
It was noted that in the early morning of November 4, 2020, the TPLF junta attacked the northern command of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces stationed in the Tigray region. They made happen indescribable human suffering by demonstrating outrageous cruelty and unmatched disloyalty.
The Ethiopian Human Rights Council says Ethiopia's 2021 election can be taken as a good lesson in the history of the nation's democratic culture. Meanwhile, the council voiced complaints over harassment and intimidation of its observers on polling day in some constituencies. This came here today when the council briefed journalists on its provisional reports of the election which took place on June 2021. Goshumaliso reports.
A local human rights organization, the council planned to deploy over 640 observers under the auspices of the National Electoral Board of Ethiopia. However, it managed to field 515 observers in a total of 8 states and 2 city administrations to observe the overall election process. Accordingly, the council said Ethiopia's 2021 election can be taken as a good lesson in the history of democratic culture of the nation.
A relatively successful and peaceful election that can be taken as a good lesson in history of building a democratic culture in Ethiopia. Moreover, HERCO calls on NEBE to correct the problems observed in the current election for the polling to come.
Meanwhile, the council said its observers were subjected to harassment in some polling stations when some security personnel mistook them for the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, which according to some media reports were not certified to observe the polls.
A few days ago, various media outlets reported that the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission had been barred from observing the election. Following this, due to lack of awareness at some polling station, our HERCO observers were barred from observing the process and subjected to harassment. This incident was witnessed by our observers in Gondar, Adama, Sidama, and Addis Ababa, Sambata, as well as in Naqamt.
High voter turnout, engagement of several domestic and foreign civil society organizations, and the availability of internet connections were cited as enabling factors during the polls. The council appreciated the peaceful conclusion of election in most parts of the country. However, the council has observed that most polling stations were not suitable for persons with disabilities as opposed to provision in the Kampala Convention.
Though polling stations are expected to be convenient for voters, HERCO observed polling stations that are not suitable for persons with disabilities and for elderly. Though special polling stations are expected to be established for internally displaced persons, or IDPs, as per the African Union Convention for the Protection and Assistance of IDPs in Africa, or Kampala Convention, and a directive issued by NEBE, HERCO observed that such polling station had not been established.
Asked if any human rights violations occurred according to its observation, the Council said these and other aspects will be disclosed when the Council releases its final report. The Council finally urged political parties and social media activists to refrain from declaring victory until the board announces final reports.
The Nile's main source, the Blue Nile, starts in Ethiopia, at Lake Tana. The river flows towards Sudan and joins the river's other tributary at Sudan's capital, Khartoum, before heading downstream to Egypt. GERD is being built here, on the border with Sudan, near the Blue Nile source. The dam will catch water in its massive reservoir, whose surface area is larger than that of Greater London.
Ethiopia has rejected the effort of Egypt and Sudan in bringing the issue of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam to the United Nations Security Council and called on the Council to encourage the countries to engage in the AU-led GERD negotiations, according to Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
We also sent a letter to the UN Security Council rejecting the position of both Egypt and Sudan, which refers to the appeal of these countries to bring in the United Nations Security Council and to bring the UN Security Council to deal with the issue of the GERD.
The spokesperson Dina Mufti reaffirmed Ethiopia's unwavering position on the AU-led negotiations on GERD.
Ethiopia has expressed its commitment to the AU-led process, and it has also asked the UN Security Council to urge both Egypt and Sudan to stick to that positions and to support the African Union in realizing the very objective of the negotiations.
Ethiopia's ambassador to South Sudan reiterated that the GERD project is purely for the generation of electricity for economic development and has no other ill intention meant to harm the downstream countries. This came here today in an exclusive interview to #1 Citizen Daily newspaper in South Sudan. He said even though the GERD is a sensitive issue, Ethiopia believed that the dam has to be a source of cooperation, not a source of conflict. Daniel Kassan tells us more.
Nabil Mohadi Abdullahi, Ethiopia's ambassador to South Sudan, told the #1 Citizen Daily newspaper that his government believes that dam is a source of integrating all the three countries, describing the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam as a Pan-African project which shouldn't be politicized. The Ethiopian envoy said South Sudan, as one of the Nile Basin countries, should as well actively get involved in the negotiation process in search of an agreement for the equitable use of the Nile waters for it to claim fair share of water resource in the future. Mahdi reiterated that Ethiopia cannot use the hydroelectric dam for any other job or project except only for hydroelectric power generation. Ethiopia, as the source of Blue Nile, is believed to be contributing more than 86% of waters of the Nile, but despite this huge contribution, Mahdi echoed that Ethiopia has not been allowed to use its own natural resources. He said Ethiopia's important position is that it doesn't have any intention of disturbing the livelihoods of the downstream countries. Mahdi reiterated that Ethiopia's intention is to use the water resource to extricate a citizen from abject poverty, saying the leadership in Egypt and Sudan need to abandon the absolute claim to monopolize the Nile waters, and they demonstrate the necessary political will to negotiate in good faith with the view of reaching a win-win solution in the remaining outstanding issues. The Ethiopian diplomat said his country requested Sudan and Egypt to accept the rights of all their rival countries to use their natural resources and respect the rights of the current and future generation of Ethiopia on using the Nile. He categorically highlighted that the African-led negotiation process is the only platform for achieving the objective of a lasting solution over the GERD issue, arguing that seeking the involvement of the United Nations Security Council in the GERD matter is out of the mandate of the UN Security Council.
Kenya believes that the African Union is an important platform to materialize the negotiations on the ground. Ethiopian Renaissance Dam country's ambassador to India said. During his conversation with Ethiopian ambassador in India, Tizita Mulugeta, ambassador of Kenya in New Delhi, Willie Bett underscored that the AU is instrumental in addressing GERD issues with a view to bring African solution to African problems. The ambassador has also elaborated the status of the negotiation of the GERD and the significance of the AU-led negotiations among Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt to reach a win-win solution. Ethiopian ambassador Tizita Mulugeta also briefed her Kenyan counterpart on the current situation in Tigray and the unilateral ceasefire declared by the government of Ethiopia. Kenyan ambassador Willie Bett affirmed the support of his country to the unilateral ceasefire Ethiopia has declared in Tigray.
Fertile land.
Wow.
So green is fertile. Green.
All right.
የምናድበለብለው ቅርጽ እንዲይዝልን ነው። ይኸውላችሁ እንደዚህ ሳደርገው ይቀልጣል። በማንኪያ የሚበላ በማንኪያ ይበላል፣ በእጅ የሚበላ ይታብረምናው። በስመ አብ ሽታታ አሽቃሩ በስመ አብ ጌታ
Jason's gonna go in. Jason's going in hard. I love that. You see, all the guys are aggressive. They go
yeast and lemon water, but it really smells good. It smells like lemony fresh. Oh yeah, the aroma of that berber and those spices. Wow. And then we're a little
ተካና ይባላል ከወተት ከቡላ ከአይብ እና የተለያዩ ቅመሞች ተጨምሮ የሚሰራ
አለባችሁ። አዎ ሴክሲ እንዴት ይጣፍጣል።
Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. The Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs launched today on integrated labour market to information system and signed memorandum of understanding with institutions on the implementation. Integrated labour marketing information system is a digital system that provides essential basis for employment and labour policies and inform the design, implementation, monitoring and evaluation of policies that are better and targeted. The system will be managed by the Ministries of Labour and Social Affairs, Science and Technology and the International Labour Organization and implemented by 20 government and private institutions, it was learned. The International Labour Organization also said the system is paramount importance to strengthen statistical capacity of countries, and it is an instrument to supply decent work-related data and statistics. Ethiopian embassy based in Nairobi says Ethiopia finalized preparation to plant a million seedling in outskirts of Kenya's capital, Nairobi. The upcoming plantation campaign is part of the Green Legacy initiative introduced by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in 2019. Demis Mokrael reports.
The Green Legacy initiative, introduced by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in 2019, envisions to plant 20 billion seedlings just in 4 years. The initiative is now becoming further-reaching, and Ethiopia plans to give 1 billion tree seedlings to its neighboring nations, as its Green Legacy initiative plans to cover other countries. Kenya is one of those countries Ethiopia intends to plant seedlings. Ethiopian ambassador to Kenya, Meles Halem, said Ethiopia has finalized its preparation to plant 1 million seedlings in the outskirts of Kenya's capital, Nairobi, just in the near future.
Would like also to plant trees in the premises of the Ethiopian embassy. I don't want to tell my Kenyan brothers and sisters about the values of greenery. You have taught us much. You know it. You are an expert. But when we plant trees in Kenya, it's just to show the solidarity of Ethiopians to the Kenyans. When we grow, you grow. When Kenya grows, Ethiopia grows. And that's why we always say Kenya and Ethiopia are not competitors. We are partners.
In Kenya Forest Service, Nairobi Forest Service head Francis Karuki said his country is striving to scale up its forest coverage by 10%. To this end, Karuki expressed that Kenya has to plant more than 2.4 billion seedlings, and Ethiopia's Green Legacy initiative complement his country's current action.
We appreciate that the Ethiopian government has offered to donate over 1 million tree seedlings to Kenya, so that as we push forward the agenda of the greening agenda, then we'll also be able to get partners and neighboring countries also be able to be part of that process of ensuring that the countries within this region are actually able to get to 10% and even maintain it. the kind of lessons that Ethiopia has gone through in terms of getting towards or even going beyond 10% is something that they would want to learn as Kenya, and especially in terms of how has it been able to execute it, how does it, for example, get to the kind of resources that are required, because we know it's a massive investment. So we also need to also be able to learn, so that as we move our country, Kenya, towards getting to 10%, I think those inputs become very, very crucial.
Yes, good morning.
The Green Legacy project introduced by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed enabled Ethiopia to plant billions of seedlings in the last 3 years. This initiative is now crossing borders, and Ethiopia is preparing to plant 1 million seedlings in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, right here in Gong Hills. Reporting to ETV, Demis Mokriao, Nairobi, Kenya.
And in business, the $53 million Bahada Industrial Park created more than 1,200 job opportunities for